Greetings and welcome. I am Justavor, bringing you what I hope is constructive information on what the system of white supremacy, racism, is and how it works, as well as what can be done to replace it with the system of justice. Winning the battle, but losing the war. The Alabama Riverfront Brawl. If you've seen the video of the suspected white supremacist race soldiers attempting to maul a black riverboat co-captain after he asked them to move their boat to make space for others to dock, then you also saw the responding actions of the many black people who ran in to save this black co-captain as he was being outnumbered and brutalized by these suspected race soldiers. I've heard this incident being referred to by many names, such as the Montgomery Brawl, the Montgomery Fade, the Montgomery Sweet Tea Party, the Montgomery Melee, and even Bloody Saturday, which is a reference related to the day known as Bloody Sunday, on the day of March 7th, 1965, when over 600 peaceful black marchers were beaten by race soldiers who had badges at the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. I won't rehash the entire scene. I will barely mention the heroic actions of the 16-year-old Aaron Rudolph, being dubbed Aquaman after he swam quite a distance in short time and still had the energy to throw hands to grown adults who outaged and outsized him while delivering a rock bottom to one or two suspected racists. And they say black people don't swim. Not enough of us do. Too many of us need to learn, and I think Aaron Rudolph demonstrated rather well some of the benefits of knowing how to swim. I will barely mention the black males and females, putting aside the white-influenced gender war to collectively throw down and even toss a few suspected racist males and females around. Some suspects being thrown into the river, and others diving into the river to save themselves. I will barely mention the white folding chair flying around and landing upside the head of one or two suspected racists. What I will say is this. Defending other black people from violent racists is black self-respect. For the purpose of these videos, the term black self-respect will be defined as the act of a black classified person extending their individual self-respect to the collective of all black classified people. I do not support being the aggressor and unnecessarily engaging in violence, but counter-violence is often called for when facing violence from others. Counter-violence is black self-respect. In terms of the Riverfront Brawl in Montgomery, Alabama on August 5, 2023, the focus of this video will be what may come following the incident. This video will focus on the potential long-term aftermath. Following this incident, we saw many celebrations of what is perceived as a victory for black people against not only racist individuals, but a system of white supremacy. To add some historical context to this story, Montgomery, Alabama was home of the legendary bus boycott, which lasted from December 5, 1955 to December 20, 1956, after the ancestor Rosa Parks was arrested for her refusal to follow a racist law that demanded black people give up their bus seat to a white person. Going back further, Montgomery, Alabama served as a key trading city of formerly enslaved black people, often rivaling the ports of New Orleans. Many are pointing to the place of this brawl as the very spot most black people in that area of the South were traded. The infamous Dr. J. Marion Sims, known as the father of gynecology, who experimented on enslaved black females and infants without anesthesia, conducted his experiments in Montgomery for decades. So, when we look at this incident at the riverfront and take into account that these victims of racism were beyond justified in defending themselves and each other, the historical context makes it even more justified. I must note, however, that those who practice racism see victims of racism as slaves who have no rights that white people are bound to respect, as was stated in the infamous Dred Scott case, or Scott v. Sanford. If white people did suffer a collective L on the docks of the river that day, the pattern of behavior they have demonstrated in the past is that they don't take L's and just let them lie. While black people are celebrating a win with memes and anthems, t-shirts, and even tattoos, white people are focused on winning the war for maintaining the global system of white supremacy. Hell, they'll let us have a few battles if that serves their strategy of using deception and confusion about what racism is and how it works in order to maintain, expand, and or refine their system. What I'm focusing on is the potential retaliation likely to be inflicted on Black people in direct response to this incident. In the book titled The Destruction of Black Civilization by the ancestor Chancellor Williams, the ancestor goes back as far as 4500 BCE, over 6,500 years before present, to demonstrate how white people of Europe, as well as so-called white Asians and their so-called colored offspring, have repeatedly invaded North Africa until, finally, they took hold of the country and Black people were unable to get it back. I suggest reading The Destruction of Black Civilization by the ancestor Chancellor Williams to better understand how white people don't give up until they have won it all, even if they lose or sacrifice a few battles here and there. In response to this incident at Riverfront Park, I will suggest being on the lookout for an uptick in violence against Black people at the hands of suspected racists. I would keep watch for an uptick in incidents of law enforcement officials brutalizing Black people even more than usual. I suggest paying extra attention to white-controlled legacy media engaging in the tactic of racial reframing more than usual to attempt to justify any acts of violence against Black people. I would also keep watch for social media platforms attempting to suppress this incident and the discussions around it, as has been done on TikTok, according to this suspect.
TikTok is working overtime to get down all those videos of the incident in Montgomery, Alabama over the weekend at the Riverwalk, including my own video, got taken down. But we all know what happens next. And so that's why I wanted to come here and chat for a second, because in about 48 hours, we're going to see, inevitably, a group of white people paraded across Fox News and touted as, innocent victims of an angry Black mob.
She doesn't sound too ignorant about racism to me.
And that is so fucking far from the truth. And so it's important that you go watch the videos. They're on YouTube. You can go to Instagram, go watch the full video and see how this entire thing started, because it was 100% started by the white folks. And I'm not sure why they thought that they could do what they did.
I think she knows very well why they thought they could do what they did. They have white power. That's why.
And the incident starts because they parked their boat in a place they're not supposed to park their boat. And they're filled with a little bit of drunkenness and a whole lot of stupidity and God knows how much audacity and, reeking of white privilege.
I think white power is more accurate than white privilege. What enables white privilege? White power.
And they just, for some reason, thought that they could block the parking spot for a commercial riverboat who probably rents that dock, right? That's their space. And the riverboat sends their security guard over to ask these people to move their boat. And what happens next is atrocious. They essentially gang up on him. They jump him. At one point, it's like 8-1. They've got him down on the ground, Rodney King style, and they're beating him. And everyone on the riverboat can see it. The riverboat's been sitting out there for 10 minutes. They're all videotaping. They can all see it. One guy dives off the boat and tries to swim to the dock to help him because they can't get there fast enough to help their coworker and their friend, because he's getting beaten by these people. And so when the boat finally gets to dock, the wave of retribution that comes off that boat, and you'll notice a lot of them are wearing blue crew shirts because they're coming in to protect their buddy. There's a couple of things to be really clear about. So one, a lot of the commentary and the things that are able to be posted are talking about these white men, these white men, these white men. And I just want to say unequivocally, the white women were right in there too.
Yes, racist woman, as usual, was right there supporting racist man, getting her shots in at times and taking many well-deserved shots in return. But we know that the tactic is to make white women look innocent no matter what they have done. That's why it is important that victims of racism emphasize the role of white females in establishing, maintaining, expanding, and or refining the global system of white supremacy. She's far from innocent. In fact, one could argue that she is the most dangerous.
Although I will admit, I do not like the way this ended. I think once the chair came out, it got overblown and people really started getting hurt.
Wasn't it already overblown the moment these suspected white supremacists began resorting to violence? She said herself that they gained up on the black co-captain 8-1. It was already to the point where someone could have really gotten hurt. Her concern seems to be for the white woman in that red dress who took that chair to the head. I suspect that this white woman, going by the TikTok handle I Am Shop Girl, is practicing a refined form of racism with her subtle victim blaming and how she is laying down the details of what happened. But even she had to admit.
But what I would tell you is that red dress woman and turquoise dress women, they were both, if you go back and watch videos, they were there from the very beginning. So when that mob was attacking the security guard, you see turquoise shirt girl right there in the front. She's kicking and hitting. She's right in there too. There's no time where any of these women are like, we're out of here. You boys are being silly. Stop this foolishness. They don't try and stop it. And it turns out this is all one big family, by the way. So they're in there pulling brothers and husbands and everybody out. I try to get that, but they're throwing these girls. They are in there to fight. This is all the stupidity of this one family who thought they were above the rules, who thought they were special, and the good folks in Montgomery, Alabama showed them how exactly special they are.
It would not be right to conclude this video without mentioning the actions of law enforcement officials there. I am aware that many of them were themselves victims of racism, and while the black citizens were subduing violent criminal suspects, law enforcement did not use their tasers or guns on these suspected white supremacists, as we have seen them do far too many times against non-white people who have done far less. I am surprised none of the black people who were assisting law enforcement didn't end up shot or at least electrocuted. I did see a couple of those black people detained, even with force. More force than I saw being used against the white people, at least from the clips I have seen. According to the Counter-Racist Code, as written by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., when in contact with law enforcement officials, victims of racism should remember to do 3 things. Don't fuss, don't fight, don't flee. What matters the most is that we survive these encounters with suspected race soldiers with guns and badges so that we continue to use our time and energy towards solving the problem of the system of racism, white supremacy. Until then, I would suggest saving all celebrations for after the system of white supremacy has ended. And we've seen that there have been a few arrests of white people in this situation, males and females. But let's not take these arrests to mean that they've been convicted. They're being charged with what appears to be simple assault, even though it was reported that they were using the N-word and even threatening to shoot the black co-captain. Based on that alone, we should see at least 1 hate crime charge. But it is likely that these charges will end up being dropped, leading to slaps on the wrist for these racist suspects who have a history of being disruptive and even committed alleged crimes at that very same Riverfront Park. 1 battle, or 2, or few, does not equal winning the war. Until then, we don't have anything to celebrate. I have to reiterate, defending oneself and other black people from violent racists is black self-respect. What are your thoughts? Feel free to leave your questions, comments, and concerns. For more information about the purpose and goals of this channel, as well as some basic definitions of words and terms we use in reference to our work, I have included a link below to a video containing this information. If you would like an even better understanding of the code and how it works, please visit producejustice.com to order the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. There are many constructive suggestions for ending the system of white supremacy, and Mr. Fuller's code book and its word guide act as guides to getting and keeping on code. If you think this content is constructive and worth your time and energy, please subscribe and share to support the making of more content in the future. Much appreciation for all the Vors already subscribed. I am Justavor, and I am still learning. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White